Ayy, look, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
Game, we had the Kansas City Chiefs going on the road to play the Baltimore Ravens in an AFC Championship game, and the Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs were able to win this game 17-10. So I got a couple of questions that I'll be asking you guys throughout this segment, but I'll go ahead and just get your initial thoughts from this game first.
I'm like, two people that are at blame here: Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken. The offensive coordinator and the quarterback are at blame here. For one, I'll start at Todd Monken. I mean, we came into this game thinking, well, the Ravens are gonna run the football. This is their identity all year long. This is the Ravens. This is what they've done. They run heavy, and then they pass where they can. They're a very, very efficient offense all year long. They run the ball. You're barely gonna see it when they have it. You watch the Bills play against the Chiefs. The Bills absolutely run over the Chiefs. In that first half. I mean, they had no answers on the ground game. They were going heavy personnel every single time, and they were like, okay, see if you can contain the run. And then from there, the Chiefs made adjustments second half, and then the Bills started to drop back a little bit more. They still were doing quick passes. They're playing conservative. I'm just confused at the Ravens' game plan. You get stuffed on a couple early runs, and then you completely abandon it. I mean, where is your philosophy there? I just don't understand teams, in these games, they just abandon what got them here. A lot of people were criticizing what Dan Campbell was doing in that Lions and Niners game, but one thing I can respect is he stuck to what got them there. All year long, they were an aggressive play calling team, and that's what they stuck with. With the Ravens, I'm just surprised why you want to drop back that much, when you've had success running the football. The Chiefs are bottom half ranked run defense. They're an elite pass defense. They're elite top 4 in pass EPA. Run EPA, they're like bottom half. So I'm sitting here thinking, wow, I hope they're going to run the football. Well, they don't. They get stuffed a couple times. They abandon it. They force Lamar Jackson to go drop back against Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes didn't blink at all. He didn't blink whatsoever in that first half. And then, the Ravens D-line in that first half, I was like, what's going on here? I mean, no real pressure. The guys weren't getting to the quarterback. It felt like Mahomes was getting anything he wanted. In that second half, man, the Ravens defense absolutely showed out. They did their job in that second half. Nobody can blame. I mean, I watched Kyle Hamilton completely end a drive by himself. 3 straight stops by himself. So I'm sitting here confused that, it comes up to the quarterback, and he's the final one here. Lamar Jackson, he's my guy. I've been supporting him for quite some time now. I'm still going to be supporting him, but he disappointed me in this game. That first half, he didn't have much going. I felt like the whole running quarterback got to his head because there was space to run. You saw Josh Allen run against the Chiefs, and you don't do the same. I mean, the whole running thing got to his head. He was forced to go into dropbacks. He was missing reads. The throws were kind of errant. Then, I mean, the one to Isaiah Likely was just, the icing on the cake for the Chiefs, And then you had the Zay Flowers mistake. The flag is one thing. That's just a rookie doing taunting. But you just can't dive in that situation, man. Tuck the ball, try to get what you can, and then from there, you can run it. And so the Ravens, I mean, I have no doubt that this team will be good again next year. Their core is still there, but, you don't get chances this often against a Chiefs team that was probably their worst in a while. I mean, their defense is great and all, but this Chiefs offense has been at its worst since Patrick Mahomes has been a quarterback for this team. And for you guys to not get capitalized against this, I mean, it's a bad showing for Lamar Jackson, who now sits at 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions in his playoff career. He needs to prove the masses wrong. Simple as that. You had your excuses those first 2 years. 2019, you're the number 1 seed. You drop against the Titans. The next year, you come back, you beat them. But your only playoff career wins being, Ryan Tannehill and C.J. Stroud, a rookie. That's not good enough for Lamar Jackson, especially a quarterback of his caliber who's probably going to win his second MVP. I expect better. That's just my thoughts.
Man, what a game. Very, very defensive game. Lamar Jackson, there was a lot of throws I felt like that he missed. I feel like, the opportunities that he had during the second half, Chiefs, they came out the first half. They came out storming. They scored 17 points. They were very consistent on offense. They held the Baltimore. I think they held Baltimore team to to 3 points in the first half. Pretty sure it was just 3 points. They weren't moving the ball. They weren't running the ball pretty well.
Depends
Lamar Hardy
when was that Zay Flowers touchdown?
it was second half.
That Zay Flowers was in the first quarter.
Was it
So
first quarter?
the Chiefs went scoreless in the second half.
Yeah, scoreless in the second half. But hey, I felt like there was a lot of opportunities left on the board, especially the second half. This defense, they did not let nothing on the board. It was, I think, 6 drives, 6 punts. I don't know how much total yards in all those drives accumulated, but they held their ground. They gave you opportunity to chances and chances again to go score, and Isaiah Likely pick, that was just horrible. You throw into triple coverage. To me, that's just a bonehead play. You're panicking. You just like, you know what? Hopefully he gets it. That you missing OBJ about 2 times, both on the same side. I think one of them was in the end zone. He missed him. He overthrew him there. There's a couple other plays. The fumble that he had. I felt like he could have got out the pocket, found Nelson Aguilar a second earlier. That could have been another touchdown for 6. And then, there was just a lot of miscues. And this was a question, can they give him a team equipped to make it to the playoffs, make it to the Super Bowls? And I felt like they did on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. And he didn't show up. This was his opportunity, He's about to be a 2-time MVP. We gave him the excuses. We gave him we'll give him the pass these last couple of years because his team's not good, or that the offense doesn't have targets, or they don't have any, good receivers or anything like that. This was the year, and for me, I feel like he had the opportunity. He didn't show up in one of his biggest games of the career against one of the best youngest quarterbacks in the league right now, Patrick Mahomes. And like I said, Mahomes, he had an okay game, but second half they didn't do anything. They not putting no points on the board. They didn't, they punted the ball 6 times. Your defense is holding strong. Their defense is a phenomenal defense as well. Shout out to the Chiefs defense. They made some big plays. They had about 4 to 5 sacks, 3 turnovers, so they play very well. But yeah, for me, Lamar Jackson, he didn't show up, and very young team. But they're gonna move forward. But there's gonna be a lot of teams back there next year that are gonna be healthy and they're gonna be equipped just to go up against them. So Lamar had his time, man. Now we got to start, saying, hey, is this, is he in that elite category? Can he get out the playoffs? Can he get some wins? His stats is looking nasty, but we'll see what happens.
I won't go ahead and repeat what you guys have just said because I think we can all agree I have similar thoughts coming out of this game. And the first question that I do want to get to for this game specifically is what were you guys more surprised with? Patrick Mahomes clinching his 4th Super Bowl or Lamar Jackson choking in this AFC Championship game?
I'm more surprised with Lamar Jackson's performance. I mean, like Patrick Mahomes, like he made it to the Super Bowl, right? If you had said that to start the season, I don't think anybody you would have been like, oh, that's just normal. Of course, you'd pick him. 6 weeks in, you'd probably still pick him. Then after like maybe 12 weeks, you'd be like, okay, this team doesn't look like. By the end of the season, you're probably thinking there's no way in hell the Chiefs are making it to the Super Bowl and the Ravens are making it. And then all it took was one win against the Dolphins where people were like, okay, yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes, man. Versus Lamar Jackson, where we had this expectation about his team being so good and him playing at an MVP level where we're thinking, okay, at least Lamar Jackson's going to leave with a good performance regardless of what happens. And that's the most surprising part. I mean, I expected a really good performance from him, and it didn't happen.
I'm more surprised, man. You got a guy that won 18 games this year coming up to this game. Not a bad performance. He didn't play bad. His team, I think, 15-3 in that span. Coming up to this game, they've been playing phenomenally well. Everybody's been playing good. And him coming off a 4-touchdown game last week to this, very surprising to me. I felt like there was a lot of opportunities that he missed, although he was playing a good defense. But I felt like his performance by himself, he played pretty bad. You got, although, Zay Flowers, he could have dove in not diving for that touchdown, but he could have ran it in. He could not have that penalty. The other stuff like that. But Lamar, missing a lot of throws, having 2 turnovers. It's a lot on him. It's a lot on him.
I really have to think long and hard about this question because obviously, first things first, my expectation for this Baltimore Ravens team and Lamar Jackson specifically going into this postseason, was for them to make it out of the AFC and make it to the Super Bowl, and at least just make it there. Didn't necessarily guarantee them winning anything of that sort, but just for them getting there, I thought that was supposed to be like some sort of lock. But I'm honestly just really more surprised with how Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, how they were able to, get to this position, get to the Super Bowl once again, back to back years. Because especially throughout the entire season, what we've been talking about this Kansas City Chiefs team going back from to week 1 of this season, where I was very concerned about this weapons group for Patrick Mahomes. This is something that he wasn't accustomed to throughout his career. He's had the likes of Tyreek Hill, and even when they won the Super Bowl last year, that was the same question going into that season, and they were able to still win with guys like Juju and McCole Hardman and Kadarius Toney. And of course, at some point in this regular season, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes just either weren't on the same page or just things just weren't going right for him. There were Travis Kelce didn't necessarily have the greatest season. A guy who's arguably the second best tight end in all of football and is dominating in this postseason run right now. Him and Patrick Mahomes weren't having that father-son type connection out there on the field, and so even them beating the Miami Dolphins didn't necessarily, confirm for me that these guys were going to go ahead and go on to the Super Bowl, because I did think they would lose that game to Buffalo, and then they go on the road to Buffalo, and in a game where Josh Allen had everything going for him, even when the Kansas City Chiefs had the opportunity to put the nail in the coffin, they weren't able to do it, and it took Josh Allen messing up on that last drive and not hitting Khalil Shakir in the middle of the field. And then we get to this game. Obviously all eyes are on this matchup between Mahomes and Lamar, and Lamar's coming off one of his best postseason games against that Houston Texans team at home. And if you're a team in the AFC, the one thing that you always want in the postseason is home field advantage. And throughout the season, the Baltimore Ravens were the number 1 team in the AFC. They were the team to beat, and they were the best team on both sides of the ball. And for Patrick Mahomes to come into this game and look unfazed whatsoever isn't something that necessarily surprised me, but it's just something that I look at and I think, man, if this type of environment, if this type of situation doesn't necessarily phase a guy like this, I'm not sure what situation and what environment will. I said this last week. I said if the Baltimore Ravens weren't able to get this Kansas City Chiefs team now, I can't see them getting them any other year after this, and I'm not going to sit here and say that going into next year that the Baltimore Ravens, won't be a top 2 or top 3 favorite to win the Super Bowl, but all roads go through Patrick Mahomes. If you want to get to that Super Bowl, you got to get through him. And like I said, Lamar Jackson acknowledged that, but at some point you got to be able to step up to the plate and deliver. And unfortunately, that just wasn't the case for Lamar Jackson. And, I'm completely disappointed in his performance. I'm heartbroken because, like I said, I didn't want to see this Kansas City Chiefs team once again being here in this position, going on to the Super Bowl. And I just wanted Lamar Jackson to silence all of his critics. I'm not the biggest Lamar Jackson fan. I've had my fair share of hate towards him. But if there was ever a moment in time where I was rooting for Lamar Jackson to overcome all of that, it was a specific moment against a guy that I'm not the biggest fan of either in Patrick Mahomes. But, this is what greatness really is. And I've been a Brady fan all my life, and I've always been the one saying, if the team has Tom Brady, they'll always have a chance. No matter who they have out there on the field, and I feel like as a Patrick Mahomes fan, if you're a Mahomes fan, you probably feel the same exact way. It doesn't matter who you have on offense, as long as you have Patrick Mahomes under center, everything's going to be all right, and you're going to get to where you want to go. And so, that's for me, that's just my biggest surprise coming out of this weekend. Just how Patrick Mahomes was just unfazed in an environment like Baltimore. Not everybody didn't necessarily have their question marks about the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes going on the road and winning a road playoff game, but it was something that everyone was looking forward to because it's something that Patrick Mahomes has never done, throughout his career so far. And for him to completely just beat the two top teams in the AFC, in the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens, on his way to another Super Bowl appearance, was definitely something surprising for me, and it definitely wasn't on my bingo card. My second question is: are there any concerns with Lamar Jackson and this Baltimore Ravens team ever winning a Super Bowl?
Uh, Not really. I mean, to be honest, I mean Lamar Jackson's still in his prime. Coming off the MVP season. I mean, from here, it's only up. They may not be able to get that number 1 seed next year, but at this point, it's just improvements. I'm hopeful for Lamar Jackson to be able to ever secure one, but like you said, all roads go through Patrick Mahomes, and that's the hump that they have to get over. that's the focus really for practically everybody in the AFC. You know, not just solely Lamar Jackson, for Josh Allen, for Joe Burrow, for Trevor Lawrence, for every CJ Stroud, for every great quarterback in the AFC. They have to focus on Patrick Mahomes. That's the goal. That's the guy to beat. So I am hopeful for the Ravens to be able to win a Super Bowl because they have a great roster right now. I think that they can even be better next year. But you don't get opportunities like this often, so you have to capitalize where you can.
I do think their window's still open. I do believe, with the way the roster is put and how young they are and how young that defense is, I still believe there's a chance. But they're still they got to hunt Mahomes, man. Mahomes still number one, and if he's still in there, it's going to be a tough battle to get him out of that number one spot. So feel like the roster's still good. I feel like Lamar Jackson, he just got to lock in. It's time to show who you are and what like you said on draft day, I got to bring one back to Baltimore. So if you about it, you got to be about it. So Lamar got to show up. He had his opportunity this year. He missed. He got to come back next year. And like I said, other quarterbacks in the AFC as well. You got Joe Burrow, you got Josh Allen, you got CJ Stroud, you got Justin Herbert, you got Trevor Lawrence. You got a bunch of young quarterbacks in there fighting it out. And Mahomes is number one, so it's going to be a tough battle for a lot of quarterbacks.
We all watched that game, and it was clear from the start of this game that the Baltimore Ravens' game plan was to have Lamar Jackson to just drop back and be a passer and to showcase his passing ability. Were the critics right to question Lamar Jackson's ability as a passer?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, because I feel like it's always situational when you don't want the opposing, like Josh Allen, for example. I take what he was doing that first half against the Chiefs. I mean, they were getting everything, like he was just killing them with his legs, like just picking up. And then Spags made an adjustment that first half, and then from that kind of did it. They had quick passing. I felt like the critics still don't have a basis for making Lamar Jackson, quote unquote, pass. Obviously, I feel like it's more viable to do that than letting him run around. But there was space for Lamar Jackson to operate. He could have made runs. He could have picked up yardage. I mean, there's a play where he literally on fourth down took it like 20 something yards. Obviously, we know Lamar Jackson probably 2 or 3 years ago taking that to the crib. But even then, that's just another example of him utilizing his legs, to pick up yardage. And I feel like that's where Lamar Jackson's just a threat, where he's able to either use his feet, have the option. But if Lamar Jackson's thinking just solely as a passer, then that kind of limits a huge part of what makes him so special. So,
I mean, he did miss some, man. His passing this game was to me, man. I feel like he missed a couple receivers. Aguilar, he was missing OBJ, and like I said, using his legs more, him, scrambling out the pocket. I feel like Spagnuolo was blitzing a lot, and I feel like the adjustment they seen in the first half, they was like, oh, these guys are not really running the ball. We're just gonna send the blitz at him. We're just gonna make him panic, try to throw the ball out quick, try to get him out, try to get make him scramble, make a play on his legs, and essentially he wasn't. He wasn't really getting out of the pocket. He wasn't breaking away. He wasn't having big yard gainage after scrambling in the pocket. And last week compared to Josh Allen, him making big plays on his feet, him having that touchdown, him being a force in the run game, I just felt like it was a lot of panic, and it resulted to him having a bad game in the passing.
I don't know, man. I think this topic is a very, very tricky topic, just simply because obviously this has been a conversation, surrounding Lamar Jackson throughout his entire career, and for the most part, in the beginning of his career, he was able to ignore all of that. He was able to win an MVP, throwing 35 plus touchdowns and rushing for however many yards he rushed for that year, and looking like the best dual threat quarterback in all of football. And so, for Lamar Jackson to kind of give the haters and the critics more ammunition with a performance like this is what kind of is more it's pretty much it's disappointing for me to say. I think I didn't expect the Baltimore Ravens and their offensive coordinator to come out and force Lamar Jackson to throw on this Kansas City Chiefs defense. The Kansas City Chiefs pass defense is amazing. That shouldn't have been the game plan whatsoever. And so for them to put all that pressure on Lamar and to go away from their identity, pretty much it hurt Lamar in this entire game, and it gave all the haters and all the critics an opportunity and a reason to talk about him in the way that they do as a passer in this league. And I feel like Lamar Jackson, even himself, kind of got caught up in all of this. And there was a clip today that I've seen where OBJ even came and talked to him and told him, it's something along the lines of, you could make special plays with your legs. And I feel like you're kind of going away from that, something along those lines. And he was completely right. Lamar Jackson is a game-changing quarterback, and he's a guy that doesn't necessarily have to rely on his arm. He doesn't necessarily have to rely on his passing ability, because he poses so much of a threat on the ground. You have to worry about whether or not he's going to be in that pocket for longer than 2 to 3 seconds, because he could take off at any minute. And he can get to where he wants to go in the blink of an eye. And so for Lamar Jackson to kind of shy away from that and to kind of just go away from that as a whole and to hang around in that pocket for 3, 4, 5 seconds, trying to wait for a receiver to get open, it's just something that I feel like he shouldn't have done. I think sometimes you have to work outside of the system. And I'm not saying that, the great quarterbacks kind of work outside of the system. Nonetheless, Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback himself. But, in a situation like this, in a game like this, where the stakes are at the highest, for an opportunity to play in the Super Bowl in the biggest game in the NFL season, you kind of have to work outside of that system. You kind of have to work outside of the box. And I feel like, Lamar Jackson is probably thinking about that for himself. This is probably something that's going to be weighing on his mind, going into next season, into this offseason. Maybe the Baltimore Ravens as a whole, as an offense, as a franchise, have to just understand that, they have to understand what makes Lamar great. And that's his ability to be a dual threat quarterback. Your expectation of Lamar Jackson isn't to go ahead and drop back each and every play and just slice and dice the defense. That's not who Lamar Jackson is. Is that somebody that he can be? Is that somebody you want him to be? Maybe, but that's not what makes him great. We all know what makes him great. And I think for the Baltimore Ravens, they just kind of have to stick with what makes him great and try to work around that, not try to change him, not try to, force him into being something that you want him to be, just allow Lamar Jackson to play his game freely and let the chips fall where they may, man, because his defense is amazing. And even though they lost their defensive coordinator today, Mike McDonald, to Seattle, they still have a lot of young pieces on this team. And is their Super Bowl window closed? In my opinion, absolutely not. But an opportunity like this will never happen again. I'll tell you that much. With all these quarterbacks going down, this is definitely a missed opportunity for them. But this Baltimore Ravens team is going to be back, and they're going to be sticking around for a very long time, just based on the fact that they have an extremely young roster and a lot of their elite talent are in their mid to early 20s. And so, for this Baltimore Ravens team and for Lamar Jackson specifically, just going into next year, my advice would just be not to just get caught up in all this noise about being a running back as a quarterback, and just strictly play your game, because at the end of the day, that's what makes you great and that's what makes you special. That's why you're on your way to a second MVP. Not a lot of quarterbacks get their second MVPs. Get let alone get one MVP. He's already on his way to 2. And so now at this point, going into next season, the discussion surrounding Lamar Jackson is just simply, whether or not he can get over the hump. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, all the credit in the world to them. We'll go ahead and talk about their matchup against the Niners next week. As we dwell and think about who we got winning in that matchup.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.